What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Eye Popcorn for that review. I'm Chris.
I'm Nick.
And guys, this time we have a review coming up for you for a movie called Dumb Money. But before we get into that, if this is your first video with us, we'd love to have you hit subscribe down there below and join us for more videos like this. But like I said, this is about the new movie Dumb Money, directed by Craig Gillespie, who also directed I, Tanya and Cruella and what's the other one? Lars and the Real Girl, among others. But yeah, so we just saw this in theaters. It is sort of about the story that really is in pretty recent history of the whole Wall Street Bets Reddit situation where they sort of drove the stock up of GameStop and the main guy behind all that. And but yeah, what do you think about this? And what are you get us a little bit into the plot?
Yeah, I think it was pretty good. The humor was really good. I'm curious. I didn't really look up and see how much, if at all, Keith Gill was involved with this movie. So it's like if it's just pure speculation on the story between him and his family and stuff, or like how true all that is. But it's basically like he's kind of a financial, not guru, but like telling people why he likes stocks, and that stock happens to be GameStop, which has a lot of short sell shit. Oh my goodness, what is it? Short sells?
Yeah, it's basically people like betting on this stock failing, and this
Yeah,
guy's noticing all these things that make him think the stock's undervalued, and there's value here that they're not seeing. Like he's basically betting against all these everyone else in the world that's betting on this to fail, and giving his reasons as to why. And I think he does work as some kind of I wish
I,
I could remember exactly what it is, but he works as some kind of financial advisor as
hmm
his day job, and this is just sort of his hobby is talking about stocks and getting involved with Wall Street bets and everything. But yeah, it turned into quite a phenomena, right? I mean,
yeah,
really changed the landscape of how the stock market worked and kind of turned everything on its head for a minute there in a way that I don't think there was a precedent for before this. So,
yeah,
um,
not for like the retail traders at least.
mm-mm.
It definitely like he just amasses this following of people and drives the stock price up and pretty much bankrupts like a very big financial hedge fund group.
Or at least he would have if things were
Yeah,
fair in the world. He basically in the real world it turns into some phone calls to the right people and people bail him out. But so I mean, there's a lot to say about this thing besides just the story. The story you can pretty much look and read about it in real time. It happened very recently. It's almost I almost wonder if it's a little too soon to put out a movie about something that's so recent in history because it's like you can't really look at it in like the grand picture and say like what was the cultural impact of this or what was the historical significance of this because it's barely history. Like
well,
it just happened.
yeah, I know, but at the
Um,
same time, like there's probably a lot of people out there that didn't know about it, and it definitely shows how retail traders, who would be people like you and me,
mm,
which what the hedge fund people call dumb money, is because we're just throwing our money away because we don't have millions and millions of dollars to spend, is like how they're screwing over people by having all this
mm-hmm.
money and manipulating the market, and then he didn't necessarily manipulate the market, but maybe a little bit. Keith Gill, like, I mean, people just he liked the stock, and people were like, I know, we'll do it, and then it shot up. But it's like they do that all the time.
And I've heard there's a little bit of like massaging to the story to make it into a more like clear cut David and Goliath story for a movie. But I think for the most part, this sticks pretty true to the truth because you really can't hardly get away with changing much here. So,
Hmm.
um, but yeah, for me, like as far as the acting goes, I thought Paul Dano and I always loved Paul Dano, but I
Yeah.
thought Shailene Woodley surprised me here and was a great like for what her role was. Like it was nice to see. I feel like you don't often see these like supportive wife characters who like even though their husband's making like seemingly risky decisions or making decisions that are against what most people are telling him to do, she always like not just like blindly supports him, but like she's kind of doing her own research and listening to what he's saying about this stuff all along the way. And so she'll stand there with him, and there's never really a moment of like wavering there, which I thought was cool to see.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's how it is in real life or whatever, um, but that was just cool because you could see a movie like this, maybe if it wasn't based in reality or whatever, a movie like this where the wife's like always second guessing and telling him to pull his money out, and in this one she's always telling him to keep his money in there. So but yeah, they get pretty rich pretty quick, and they're getting rich causes a lot of people to lose just astronomical amounts of money.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't know if you caught it. I don't know if you know who this guy is, but I loved the Mark Rebier shout out. The
Oh,
guy who
I,
does like, I never thought I'd see that in a movie. That was great. Um, and just, I guess, just seeing like internet culture on a big silver screen was kind of nice.
yeah.
Like seeing some things that, if you're not involved in the internet culture or Reddit, and if you're not chronically on the internet, this stuff might kind of fly over your head. But it was kind of fun to see that, and that's where a lot of the humor came from for me. Like the actual the actual story doesn't have a whole lot of like laugh out loud moments per se, but when they're like showing how things are going on the internet, that was where most of the laughs were for me. I don't know. You might disagree with me there, but
No, I agree, and it seemed like a lot of the footage they used was just straight ripped from the internet or from CNN and stuff like that, like actual interviews that happened.
yeah, yeah, I liked how they interspersed like actual interview clips and real things that were happening surrounding this actual thing happening with the reenactments. Because sometimes it's like the actor portraying this person being interviewed, but the interview's real.
Right.
Uh, but man, the last one I want to say about acting wise is Sebastian Stan is like the creepiest, like most. He's certainly the most hateable person here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're supposed to hate. I guess you're supposed to hate like Seth Rogen's character as the leader of this hedge fund that's failing in wake of this, that's placing all these bets um, against GameStop. But they do kind of make you sympathize for him a little bit too. It's just like they remind you that he's also like drowning in wealth still. So
Mm-hmm. Like he
you don't feel
literally, he like,
way too much sympathy for him.
yeah, I mean, he's got so much money, he bought the mansion next door to him just to tear it down and build a tennis court so his family could play tennis during the pandemic. I
I
don't.
like that. I like the scene where he's like preparing to give his speech when all this goes to courts and trials and things like that. Um, and and I thought, for one thing, I thought it was really funny that his mic is muted when they
Mm,
first start the proceedings. And like he keeps, they don't even ever show him like his mic ever actually working. But when he's like preparing his speech, I thought it was funny that he's saying like, yeah, I come from humble beginnings as well. My dad was a grocery store executive, and they're like, oh, don't leave out the part about the dad. And he's like, I can't talk about my dad. And they're like, the grocery store part. And he's, and it's
yeah.
just the fact that he was an executive, and then it's like, oh, I saved up money and was able to go to a I don't know, Northwestern or something like
Yeah.
that. And they're like, you can't say Northwestern. He's like, a good college. So everything has to be like taken out and to make him look more humble. And then they're like, where are you planning on doing this interview? And he's like, right here, I guess. And they're like, in front of your giant wine collection. So yeah, this guy has a really hard time being relatable for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But the only other thing, so I mean, most things here are positives for me. It felt kind of like, not that it's exactly like these movies, but it felt kind of like The Big Short meets Blackberry a little bit.
Yeah, I kind of felt that too.
It's got those kind of. Have you seen The Big Short?
I haven't, but I was thinking BlackBerry while I was watching it.
The Big Short, even more so, I would say, except for the Big Short was dealing with such complex things, like even more so than certainly more so than this, that sometimes they would literally like break the fourth wall and have an actor come in and just explain something to you straight up. They're like literally like an actor's, this person's about to come in here and explain this to you because it gets complicated,
Okay.
and they just like stop the movie and explain it. So this didn't do that, but it has that same kind of vibe, and this made something interesting that could have been not particularly interesting. I guess that's more so the case with The Big Short, because this is sort of it's so wrapped up in internet culture and everything that this does feel like fresh and interesting. Um, but yeah, I guess my main like complaint here, if I can say that, it's not really a complaint. It's just that certain character or certain actors here didn't have a whole lot to really do. Like I didn't think Vincent D'Onofrio's character is one of the like hedge fund managers, and they didn't really give him a whole lot to do.
Yeah.
Um, he's got the pig as a pet for laughs,
Right.
but they didn't give him a whole lot. And I'm forgetting the guy's name. Ron Swanson.
Nick Offerman, yeah.
Nick Offerman. Yeah, I didn't think they did a whole lot with his character either. Like, I think I was expecting more laughs from that direction, and I actually ended up laughing at the Sebastian Stan character and all that more than anybody. And also, the last thing I'll say is that Pete Davidson. I, I'm warming up to the guy, but in
Right.
this, it is very like we need someone to play Pete Davidson. Can we get Pete Davidson? Okay. And then they got Pete Davidson, and he played Pete Davidson. Uh,
Right.
Maybe the character in real life is just exactly like that, but I would like to see a little more branching out. And I haven't seen every Pete Davidson thing ever, but this is a little. And it was fine at first, and then eventually, like he becomes kind of a grating character, regardless of the Pete Davidson thing or not. Like
Hmm.
his character just can't take anything seriously, and there's points in the movie where it's like, okay, I mean, can we try taking it seriously for just a second though? What if we did?
Right.
It's a lot of money, we're talking about, and so I just remember like one moment where I was like, God, can we get Pete Davidson out of the scene for just a second?
I did
But
like that scene where Pete Davidson is like doing DoorDash, and then it turns out he like stole his brother's keys and was doing DoorDash in his car.
yeah, yeah,
What
yeah.
Keith Gill
And
is
he's
his
like,
brother, or Paul Dano, and he like when he parks it, Paul Dano runs out and he's like, "Hey, quit taking my car!" And he's like, "I stained your seat and I left no gas in it," and he was just like running down the street.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, at first I liked it. I just thought like
Yeah,
there was a point toward the end of the movie where I was like, the Pete Davidson thing is wearing me out a little bit.
right.
Um, but yeah, this is enough of its own thing. It's very much like I said, David Goliath story, and you can kind of put yourself in the shoes of because we have some characters here I haven't even mentioned, like America Ferrera's character is Stonk Mom online, and she gets all involved in this Wall Street bet stuff, um, and she's very much in the negative, and like it shows you everybody's like net worth when they
Hmm.
pop up on screen if they're going to be a character in this, and hers is like hundreds of thousands of dollars in the negative, and and she ends up very in the positive, and then I mean not. I don't know if this is a spoilery thing or not. If this is a movie you can spoil, but there's a point where she's like very in the positive, and and she keeps holding when a lot of people don't continue to hold, and so it does drop down quite a bit, not fully back down to nothing, but when they do show people's net worth at the end, which I guess if there is a spoiler, this is it.
Hmm.
One of her, like she's one of the ones that they show what it is now, and it's like negative $13,000. So she's
Yeah.
working her way through, but they say she's still holding.
Yeah,
So
which
we'll
and it's
see.
not gonna probably jump up ever again like it did, but who
Yeah,
knows?
but some of these people are still doing okay. I mean, it just depends on. Most of it is about when you got out at this point in
Yeah.
the reality of it. Because even our main character here, Vince, doesn't. He doesn't get out when it peaked. So he at one point turned a $53,000 investment into a
Million, I think.
50 million, 47 million, something like that.
Yeah.
Basically 50 million. Dollar investment. But I think it got down to like 17 before he pulled it out, or maybe he's still holding on to some of it. I'm not sure, but it didn't stay that crazy. But yeah, so she's and it shows. I think the ones who came out the best, if I'm not mistaken, are these two college girls that are they're like a couple, uh, and at the end, I think they came away with like 200 and something, 300 and something thousand
Right.
each. So they seem to do the best. But yeah, what else is there to say? Um, that's pretty much it. I
Yeah,
like this thing.
I did too.
Uh,
It's fun.
yeah, you should go see it. It's one that I think you could probably wait and watch it at home. But that's not to say that anything negative about it. It's just like it doesn't benefit much from being on a big screen. But and except for supporting a movie like this for
Hmm.
sure. But yeah, what would you give? What's your score for this thing?
I'd probably give it like a 7.5. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Comedy was good, and like the overall story and like education of what happened was interesting.
Yeah, and it built up at the end. It built up at the end to a point where I left it almost thinking like that was probably an 8. But I think as a whole, it probably is a 7.5, which means
Hmm.
I really like it a lot. But yeah, there's a couple things it could have done a little better, but for the most part, yeah, that was great. Certainly, if you're gonna wait until this comes out on streaming, I would definitely watch this on streaming. There's a lot worse movies you could watch. This is a
Yeah.
good one. Um, so yeah, the next movie we're going to talk about is the new Hulu sci-fi horror, No One Will Save You. So stay tuned for that. But if you've seen this movie, certainly let us know down below what you thought about it. Or what's your favorite movie in this sort of vein? We've got a lot of movies coming out like this in recent memory, or even stuff like The Big Short too. But we got Air and The Beanie Bubble and Blackberry, like we mentioned before. So if you haven't seen this, what's your favorite of that genre that we seem to have is having a moment right now? Yeah, and like this, if you like this kind of thing, share it with your friends. Subscribe again. And yeah, we appreciate you watching as always, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.
See ya.